Many people get to this time of year with a smile on the outside and silent chaos on the inside. While the whole world talks about celebration and joy, there are those who feel a strange weight in the chest, a mix of Christmas sadness, a sense of emptiness, that tightness you can't quite explain. And it all starts with a question few have the courage to admit. Why do I feel sad at Christmas? The end of the year pokes everything we try to hide. Old memories come back, loneliness grows, the everyone happy atmosphere becomes comparison, internal pressure explodes, and emotions become unstable. It's a period that activates longing, frustration, anxiety, grief, emotional stress, and even symptoms of seasonal depression, even in those who stayed balanced all year long. It's like everything gets louder, the good and especially the bad. And when you try to understand this whirlwind, you realize it's not just an isolated feeling. It's the sum of exaggerated expectations, routine changes, conflicts, memories, social pressure, and that silent weight of thinking you should be doing better. And it's exactly this combination that turns the end of the year into one of the most challenging periods for mental health. There are people who reach the end of the year smiling, and there are people who reach it shattered inside. And it's not weakness. Christmas sadness shows up when no one's looking, loneliness hits harder, and you start questioning yourself. Why do I get sad during this time? What is it about this period that makes me feel so bad? It's that heavy mix: social pressure, self criticism, comparison, emotional stress, painful memories, frustration, anxiety, family conflicts, grief, financial stress, everything together creating a noise no one sees. And the worst part? The more you try to be okay, the more it feels like you fall into a vicious cycle that only gets worse. Almost as if this festive atmosphere amplifies every emotional weak point. Do you want to understand why the end of the year shakes your mental health so deeply and what's behind this psychological suffering disguised as celebration? Then hold on, because the next point dismantles the illusion that triggers almost all of these emotional reactions: the idea of the perfect Christmas. Do you think everyone lives that movie like atmosphere? They don't. This pressure for a perfect day is one of the biggest triggers of sadness during the holidays: frustration, social comparison, and emotional imbalance. You look around and it seems like everyone has a united family, a full table, zero problems, but that's just a showcase. Real life is internal noise, broken expectations, and that feeling of something is wrong with me. And that's how psychological suffering is born. You try to fit into a standard that was never made for you. The more you try to fit into the artificial image, the more emotional pressure you feel, the more triggers get activated, the stronger the demand to be happy because it's Christmas. And this opens the door to something even heavier: the silent loneliness that grows when you realize you don't live what the whole world seems to be living. And that's exactly what leads us to the next point: the weight of loneliness at the end of the year. Loneliness during this time isn't just being alone, it's feeling like everyone has a place, except you. It's that emptiness that grows when the lights turn on, the music plays, and inside, all you want is silence. This is one of the biggest reasons for Christmas depression: the sense of displacement, the internal doubt. Why do I feel sad at the end of the year while everyone else seems so fine? And it's not just emotional. There is comparison, there is memory, there is that discomfort of realizing that your connections have changed or never existed the way you wished. The mind creates a perfect scenario that only worsens reality. This fuels anxiety, sadness, self criticism, and becomes a cruel reminder of everything you think was missing in your life. And when this emptiness mixes with memories, then comes an even deeper blow: the impact of grief, absence, and memories that insist on returning. This is where it truly hurts. The end of the year is almost a stage where the brain projects everything you've lost: people, phases, relationships, versions of yourself that no longer exist. And it doesn't matter how much time has passed. Grief at Christmas doesn't follow a calendar. It returns whenever it wants. The painful memories appear out of nowhere: a song, a smell, an old photo, and suddenly you're no longer in the decorated room. You're in the past, comparing, reliving, trying to understand why this time of year lights up wounds you swore you had already healed. This mix becomes a powerful emotional trigger. It activates sadness, anxiety, psychological suffering, and even that feeling of failure, as if longing were some kind of weakness. It's not. It's human. But when these feelings connect to people who are still around, another problem appears: family conflicts and the growing social pressure that comes with this time of year. This is the part no one posts on Instagram. Family isn't always a hug. Sometimes it's a trigger. It's subtle pressure, passive-aggressive jokes, sibling comparisons, intrusive questions, or that sensation that you need to play the role of someone you're not. And when you mix Christmas expectations with a toxic family, an emotional minefield is created. Any word becomes stress, any look becomes judgment, any gathering becomes a test of endurance. The mind arrives already anticipating fights, reliving old arguments, and creating a constant state of alert. It's emotional stress, social pressure, family conflict, and that feeling that you have to be strong even when you're at your limit. And while you try to survive at the table, another problem begins to grow underneath everything: the financial pressure and self-criticism that explode at the end of the year. This is where a lot of people break inside without admitting it. The end of the year becomes a silent competition: gifts, new clothes, dinner, travel, showing that you're doing well. And when your wallet can't keep up, the mind fires off. Frustration, self-criticism, the sensation of failure, as if your dignity were in the price of the bag you're carrying. Financial stress becomes a direct trigger for anxiety, and social comparison makes you believe you're behind everyone else. Internal pressure grows, self-esteem drops, and that thought appears: I should be better than I am. Should for whom? For you or for other people's expectations? And while external pressure tightens, internal pressure suffocates. And that's when the brain starts doing the famous life audit. That silent judgment no one sees, but that weighs a ton. December arrives and the brain becomes an auditor of your own existence. You start reviewing everything: goals you didn't hit, decisions you didn't make, opportunities you let pass. And this audit doesn't come with kindness. It comes with pressure, comparison, and that feeling of falling behind. This is where many people enter a depressive end of the year because they turn the past into a weapon against themselves. Every mistake becomes guilt. Every failure becomes shame. Every choice becomes regret. The mind keeps repeating, you should have done more. You didn't do enough. And this creates psychological suffering, emotional pressure, and an overwhelming mental exhaustion. And while you get lost in this internal judgment, the body starts to feel it too. Routine changes, food changes, sleep changes. And that amplifies everything. The next point explains exactly how. This is where emotions begin turning into physical symptoms. The end of the year disrupts schedules, breaks routines, changes how you sleep, eat, work, and even breathe. It seems like a small thing, but this imbalance generates emotional instability, irritability, extreme fatigue, and that sensation of feeling heavy on the inside. When you sleep poorly, everything gets worse. Memory fails, mood drops, anxiety rises. When you eat worse, the body becomes more inflamed and the mind follows. When your routine becomes chaotic, the brain loses reference. And that intensifies sadness, anxiety, self-criticism, and even symptoms of seasonal depression. And speaking of that, there's a biological factor many people ignore, but it weighs a lot: the impact of seasonal affective disorder. And that's what comes next. Here comes the part no one talks about, but it changes everything. Your brain also reacts to the weather. Shorter days, less natural light, higher melatonin production, lower serotonin. The result? More fatigue, more apathy, more irritability, more symptoms of seasonal depression. It's not being dramatic, it's biology. Your body literally functions differently during this period. And when this physical shift meets emotional triggers, memories, stress, and pressure, the impact multiplies. That's why so many people feel this invisible weight without knowing how to explain it. You're not acting strange. You're reacting to something real. And understanding this helps a lot in seeing the next point: how to identify that this season is actually affecting you. Because many times you only notice after your body has already given multiple signs. The signs appear before you realize it: irritation without cause, lack of energy, trouble sleeping, desire to isolate yourself, easy crying, weak memory, heavier thoughts, constant comparison, the feeling of being outside your own body. It's as if the end of the year pushes your emotions to the limit and you start reacting on autopilot. Another classic sign: You begin avoiding conversations, gatherings, messages. Socializing feels heavy. Routine feels heavy. Your mind feels heavy. And all of this connects directly to anxiety, frustration, sadness during the holidays, emotional pressure, grief, financial stress, and that sense of not being ready for anything. When these reactions become a pattern, that's the warning sign. This season is affecting your mental health. And when you try to force happiness on top of all that, that's when the most destructive loop begins. This is the point where many people collapse. You try to smile, you try to participate, you try to pretend everything is fine. And the more you try, the more artificial it feels. This creates a rebound effect. The mind starts punishing you for not feeling what you should feel. This generates self-criticism, guilt, shame, a sense of inadequacy, and all of it fuels even more anxiety, sadness, end-of-year depression, and that silent discomfort of what's wrong with me. Nothing. There is nothing wrong with you. The problem lies in the pressure you put on yourself trying to perform happiness. And when you finally understand that, the most powerful part arrives, turning this internal chaos into clarity. And that's exactly where the final point comes in. In the middle of all of this, the anxiety that tightens, the social pressure that bothers, the memories that hurt, the loneliness that weighs, the frustrations that return, and that discouragement from your own body. You need to understand one simple thing. You're not broken. You're overwhelmed. And it's not because this season knocks you down that it defines who you are. It's not because you feel pain that you've lost control. It's just a sign that some part of you is asking for pause, care, space to breathe. Sometimes the greatest act of strength isn't smiling. It's admitting that things are hard. It's recognizing your limits. It's choosing to protect yourself instead of pressuring yourself. Realizing you don't need to defeat the world. You only need to overcome yourself, one thought at a time. And when you understand that, pain becomes clarity. The weight becomes awareness. And that awareness gives you something the end of the year will never give you on its own. Direction. And it's from that direction that you begin to rebuild. At your pace, without masks, without pressure, without comparison. And remember, this channel is free and only exists because of people like you, who believe in sharing strength and motivation. If this message spoke to you, subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Join us, turn on notifications, and keep evolving in this battle called you versus you.